Hello, everyone. We are live and recording. Hi, I'm Kellyanne, and I'm a bookseller with Mysterious Galaxy. Tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing our authors. Joining us tonight, we've got Amparo Ortiz, celebrating her newest book, Dragon Blood Ring. Dragon Blood Ring is the sequel to BLAZEWRATH Games, her alternate contemporary world fantasy about dragons and their riders competing in an international sports tournament. We also have joining us tonight our conversation partner and moderator, Andrea Tang. Andrea is the author of Rebel Wing and Renegade Flight, and we are so excited to have both of them join us for an awesome event. Hawaii Fantasy, one of our favorite things ever. So before the event gets started, just a couple house rules for anyone who hasn't joined us for one of our virtual crowdcast event. There is the chat section on the right-hand side, which you guys are welcome to chat with our authors in there as the event goes on. And then below our video, you'll see a green button that says buy books with signed personalized book plates. That'll take you to Mysterious Galaxy, where you can purchase Dragon Blood Ring and request a signed and personalized book plate from Amparo. And then last but not least, below that, there's the ask a question button. If you click that, you can ask whatever question you want for the answer in this second half of the event. So with that, I'm going to turn my screen off and let the event get started, and I'll see you guys at the end. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yay!
Yes.
We're finally meeting.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. No, Amparo, I remember when you first reached out to me, I was like so excited to get your message about doing this event.
It was so bizarre to me because I'm like, what? Why is she freaking out? Like in a good way, obviously. I was like,
no,
does she know who she is?
Right. No, I mean, I'd had my eye on your books for so long because I was just like, I'm like a giant like sports nerd, and I obviously love dragons, and this is like so many things that I love in one package. So when you reached out to me to do this event, I was just like, oh my God, like I got.
I mean, I feel like it was meant to be. I don't really necessarily believe in like destiny and such, but I feel like it was just meant to be. Like at some point,
I think this is a solid argument for Kismet here.
It needed to happen.
I was like, we were talking about this backstage for the folks in the audience. That I was like, I think I
behind the scenes
point after already saying yes that I was in fact going to be on a flight from Colorado, where I was to find Allison, back to DC today. And I like did the math in my head and I was like, it's fine. It'll be 9 p.m. in DC, like when this event starts. My flight is getting like in the early evening. I'll just adjust. And like Allison was like, are you sure you're gonna be okay? And I was like, honestly, if it were another author, I might like be like, hey, I think I gotta bow out. But like I've been so excited for Amparo's books for so long, like I gotta do it. And I'm very
This is bizarre listening to this. Like so bizarre. I am not worthy, but honestly I'm so grateful because you know how I was speaking about backstage chats. I was mentioning that being hosted by Mysterious Galaxy is one of my author bucket list items.
Oh, totally.
I've never been to California, but I would love to visit Mysterious Galaxy at some point. And just knowing that I get to have an event with Mysterious Galaxy and it's with you, like it's ridiculous. I can't believe it.
Just killing all the birds with a single stone. Just
you only live once.
But yeah, no, I'm like trying to figure out where I want to start just because I was like, I have so many questions to ask you about these fantastic books. I have
these people and these dragons.
I have this arc on hand right here. It was a good thing, as it turned out, that I was on an airplane today because I spent it mostly devouring your words. And having
that's good to know.
I think like the man sitting next to me in like my on my flight was like a little concerned because I was definitely getting like kind of emotional at certain points. He was just like, is she okay over there?
Oh, no, like yes, great, but also no. Like strangers on airplanes just
right,
you never know what you're gonna get
right now. So like you can only like really see people's eyes, and they're kind of just like
it's very bizarre. And I've been on a plane like in the last couple of weeks, and I double masked, so it felt very strange.
Right.
To like read
like
and like know that people were looking at me, but they couldn't really understand what was going on.
Right. Yeah. So just like picture me in my like heavy duty mask, just like buried like in this book, in fact.
Oh God.
Like, kind of like being up in my feels while like strangers at the airport are like, what is up with that girl over there?
I'm not sure if that specific book is like a fun book to read.
Right. Hopefully
Like,
I serve
during
as a good like walking advertisement for it, because they're like, wow, she's like really into that thing. She like clearly it must be a good book.
That's like an angry dragon on the cover. Why is she
like,
feeling
this is
all the
such
feelings?
A good cover. Like, can we just like talk about this for a minute? Like,
that was illustrated by Sedor Fiatzigbe, and I'm obsessed, to say the least. When I first saw this cover, I screamed.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think you could have asked for a better cover. Like, I'm obsessed as well. Like,
I mean, I have nothing to say. Like, I have no complaints at all.
But yeah, but I mean, it is absolutely a cover worthy of the story inside.
Oh my gosh!
And I would love to just starting with the basics. Like, the thing that like first drew me to both Dragon Blood Ring and like the original like BLAZEWRATH Games novel was this whole concept of like a world that's very like our own, but which has these magical elements, and in particular a plot that really centers on a sports story, because I feel like sports novels and fantasy, even contemporary fantasy, are not often flavors that kind of mash up. So yeah, I would be curious about what your inspiration was there. Like, are you like a soccer World Cup fan, or like sports in general?
Yes. I mean, I am talking to a martial artist, so I feel very ill-equipped to be speaking about sports in general, because I don't follow sports regularly, but I do watch the World Cup, because mostly I enjoy that sense of camaraderie. There are different nations competing, but even if you're not part of a specific country, you are a member of a specific culture, you will sometimes root for certain countries or specific teams and want them to get ahead or win, especially if another team beat yours. You really want them to.
And then you've got like a chip on your shoulder about that.
Right. It's like, for example, Puerto Rico does not compete in the FIFA World Cup, and even though I don't have like an actual team to root for in terms of my country, I will root for different teams. Sometimes I just choose which team I enjoy the most as someone with eyes that appreciate men, but I also feel like skill matters. But it did kind of come from the World Cup itself, the idea of having dragons in a similar sport. But also my main character, I always knew she didn't have a dragon steed. So I'm like, what is the point of dragons if my main character, like, I'm trying to insert her into the dragon rider kind of role, and it's not clicking. And I don't know if this happened with you, for example, Prue and Rebel Wing, like if there was ever a moment where you're like, how am I going to make this relationship work? It wasn't working for me at all with Lana.
Yeah, I mean, that was also one of my questions, because I felt like that was a really interesting choice, because I feel like everybody who, like, we've all picked up the, like, boy and his dragon or girl and her dragon kind of style YA novels, and you always like assume like, oh, okay, they're gonna like bond with this magical steed and it's gonna be really cool and
it'd be super,
like,
magical,
and it's just like taken as a given that that's just a staple of this kind of story. So I thought it was a really cool choice to like make her a member of this team of people, all of whom do have their own like dragon steeds, but then there's Lana, who's like the one person who does not, and like this is
one person
part of the sport. So so I mean that also kind of ties into my general question of like, kind of like, how did you negotiate the expectations about like, oh, like I'm doing a dragon book, but like my main character is not specifically going to be a dragon rider, and also like, how did you create this like really cool like multi-dimensional sport, because it's got everything. It's got like elements of MMA, which is my baby. It's got it's got like soccer elements, obviously, with like the FIFA World Cup influences. So like, I would love to hear about like how you were able to like kind of like piece all of that together and also come up with like a legitimate position for this like very dragon heavy sport for somebody who's not a dragon rider.
Right. I mean, I feel like for some reason Lana always came to me as the type of character that wanted something that she couldn't necessarily have at like on an international platform. Like for some reason she wanted to be visible, like she wanted to be seen, and I felt like it made no sense to have her included in the team without any sort of magical ability or without having a dragon steed. And it became more about her, like fitting her into the sport, which is why it took me a long time to actually settle on the premise. because, or like what the world would look like, because I knew it was our world but with dragons in it. But I didn't really understand the sport entirely, and it was because of her. She was at fault. I was like, I know it's soccer in the sky, but why is she playing the sport? She can't be in the sky. And then I was like, oh, she runs really fast. And, you know, like, what is the point of this? But as you say, it does have elements of MMA, the sport itself, because it is separated into two parts. There's the part that's in the sky with the actual dragon and their riders, but just specific members of the team get to be on, like, in that specific part of the game. And then once someone scores, or once a striker scores, which is a similar position to soccer, then the second half begins, which is, of course, where the runner, which is Lana's position, they have to run up a mountain, a very intimidating mountain that is magically conjured. And the intimidating part isn't the height. It's the fact that two dragons will be blowing, or is that how you say it? Shooting fire at you, like trying to blow you out of the mountain or off the mountain. And then once you get to certain parts of the mountain, the dragons will stop firing at you, but their riders will attack you and try to steal.
And then you have to like fight a person, which is that much better.
A person. And I'm like, I've been such a huge fan of kickboxing my whole life, and I use it. I practice it as a workout, not necessarily like I am a kickboxer, but I really wanted my sport to feature combat somehow, and I wanted my main character to be bad at it because she's fast. But like, what is her flaw?
I love that about her though, because I was just like, oh, this is so true to like when you're trying to like learn physical activity, and even if you've like done, even if you are kind of like, even if you have some kind of athletic background, learning like a completely new like way to move your body inevitably just makes you feel stupid. Like you're like first starting out.
You feel inadequate at everything, even though if it's just one thing that you suck at, you're like, why was I born? I have no purpose in life, and you just literally suck at one thing.
Yeah, no, I felt that in a big way, because I was like, because like I grew up doing like taekwondo, karate, like striking based, like kind of like kickboxing adjacent stuff, and then like eventually I transitioned to grappling and doing a lot of jiu-jitsu and wrestling,
which is so hard.
And I was like, I'll be able to do this. I know how like combat sports work, and I just like, I think for
it's
like
a completely different set of skills. Like it's like judo. I really admire judo practitioners or people who practice judo, because it's just, it looks really simple. Oh, you just grab someone and you knock them down. I'm like, do you know how much another human being weighs? And also, like, the force that you need is not necessarily all about physical strength. You need to be clever. You need to have speed. It's just a lot of things that add up. And I wanted my main character to suffer in a way, and that was the way to make her suffer.
No, I love that. I felt like that felt very real to me, because I was like, there are few feelings that like that have made me personally feel dumber than when I'm like sparring with somebody and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm totally gonna land this great like Muay Thai like and I'm like dealing with like a good wrestler who immediately like grabs my leg and like single legs me, and now I'm like on the floor, and I'm like, okay, well now I feel stupid for trying to take them at all.
Because there's nothing more embarrassing than thinking you have someone pinned or that you're about to win, and then the other person outsmarts just you. Like, and it's not a matter of strength all the time. And people forget, like, people who are, maybe they are fans of certain sports, certain combat sports, but at the same time, it's like, knowing that you like something doesn't make you qualified to comment on skill. Necessarily. Which is my biggest anxiety writing BLAZEWRATH games and creating the world, because I knew I wanted magic users and I knew I wanted dragon riders, but I wanted my main character to be like the reader, someone without a dragon seed and someone without magic. So I was like, is this a self-insert? Maybe. But I'm not.
Are we mad about it though? Really? Like,
are we?
Are we though? But yeah, no, I loved those training scenes, because I was just like, no, I mean, I feel like as like an athlete, like I've definitely been there before, and just
my gosh,
and I'm just like, I love that this
really stressful.
right? Like, it's not something that comes super naturally to her, and she does get really stressed out about it. And like, I remember I was getting stressed, like, while reading the first book, just because I was like, on one hand, like, yes, I know there's like this international conspiracy going on, and like that's
Right.
more important. But like, I don't know, I almost like sympathize to some extent with Victoria, even though she's like kind of in the wrong. Like, all that matters is winning, because I'm like, because like a part of me was like, okay, but I also really want them to win the cup, and like, yes, terrorism is bad, but like, Lana's been working so hard, and I just want good things for this team. I'm so attached to them. Like, it was just like I was like very anxious on multiple fronts at that point.
That is perfect. Like, I love it. Terrorism is bad, but
also,
is cool.
I was like, but I also really want them to win. Like,
yes, and that's actually a question. Absolutely, yes, terrorism is bad. Andrea Tang, 2021. I love it, and we need a jersey with that actually, or like a T-shirt.
Right. Speaking of which, I would absolutely buy like BLAZEWRATH swag. Like, I'm so, like, I like, yeah, like I watch a lot of sports anime, and I definitely own some like
you
T-shirts. So yeah,
okay.
like I would totally wear like the fictional sports jersey and like pretend that it's like an actual. Like,
yeah, I had some made or some designed for the first one for BLAZEWRATH Games, and it has I designed it that set. I designed a jersey that said BLAZEWRATH World Cup, and there was a dragon on the front, and in the back it said staff. So it's like, if you had one, you are just essentially part of the cup, but you're not playing.
Right.
And people got really like, but why can't I be a player? Give me like, and I did ask people for their numbers, like the numbers that they wanted. So that was fun. And I felt like I was a part of the team.
Yeah.
Again.
Like I would totally rock, like, you know how you can get like baseball and soccer jerseys for like your favorite players? I would totally rock like a Takeshi Endo jersey. I'm sure.
Oh my God.
Like,
just no team affiliation, just Takeshi Endo. Like, that's it.
He probably has like multiple jerseys too for like the different, like, the different World Cups throughout the years too. And like,
oh my gosh, that's like the best part of the signing.
Like,
yes.
Right.
I mean, I feel like a lot of the sports fans that I'm like familiar with and that I know, like my friends, my family, I feel like they would pay exorbitant amounts of money to get collectible items from their favorite teams and such. And I feel like there's something really, the sports fanatic culture for me is fascinating, because you have people who will just completely and totally follow and support a specific player or a team.
Oh, absolutely.
And I feel like Victoria, speaking of her, she was just like the kind, I really wanted to explore, you know, these often vain male athletes that people love.
Right.
And it's like, but what if
the ones
with the
Instagram thirst traps and like,
right.
Yeah.
Like, what if a girl was like a little bit like that? Would that be annoying? And for some reason, I'm very shocked that so far people have responded positively to Victoria.
I was so happy she got her own POV in the second book.
Oh yes,
because I was like, because like even when she was kind of like the mean jock girl in the first book. Even then, I was very like, mean. I kind of like you, because I feel like in, like, speaking.
I understand you.
Right, like, speaking of sports anime tropes, I feel like in another story, this would definitely be, like, a male role, like, the guy who's giving, like, the rookie a hard time. Like, it's always, like, a guy who's, like, the mean jock bully. And I loved that it was, like, a girl this time. And that she, and also that she, like, there were these hints of this really interesting, complicated backstory for her as well. Right. So I was really excited that we got to delve into that a little in the second book. Like,
I mean, that was really hard for me.
So much. Yeah.
I was like, why must I write? Like, jumping from one POV to the next was very strange to me, because I'm very, like, similar to Lana in the way I express shock or surprise or, like, happiness. But Victoria is, like, my extreme version. She's, like, so intense all the time.
She's like your angry id. Like,
yes, she's very angry. And she's not afraid to be disliked, which I respect.
I love that in a female character.
I do. I respect that as well.
Yeah. Like, I love that she is just like this hardcore, like, like almost like sports idiot that you see. It's just like, this is my thing and I don't really care about anything else, sometimes to the detriment of my own likability, and that's fine.
Yes,
but I'm also really like goddamn good at what I do. Like,
yeah, like you have to understand yourself first and foremost, and whatever other people think of you, of course it might affect how you see yourself, but for Victoria it's like, I don't care.
Right.
Like, I only care about myself, or like what I want, not just herself. She does love her mother, she loves her seed, she cares about her teammates.
Right.
And by the end of BLAZEWRATH Games, you do see her warming up to Lana.
Right.
But
I really love the
still
development of their friendship. Like,
oh, that's so cool.
I felt like, yeah, because the two of them, especially I think in the second book, like, yeah, I know, like, I recognize, okay, like, I guess, like, pseudo spoiler warning, like, yes.
Yes,
like,
spoilers.
Like,
we will be
Takeshi
discussing
is, like,
spoilers.
very clearly kind of being set up as Lana's love interest, and I love them, incidentally. I think their chemistry is fantastic, and I find them really sweet. But, like, the alternate, I love that you chose to do the dual POV with Lana and Victoria specifically, because, like, even though they aren't the central romance, I feel like their relationship is almost like, I don't know, it almost follows the same beats of, like, a kind of, like, will they, won't they, like, hate to love romance.
Wow, I hadn't really thought about that. That's amazing, though.
I was like, oh, it's like that kind of, like, romance trope, but in, like, a female friendship.
I
and
had
I love
that was completely just me vibing their friendship out, because of course you can be friends with someone, but you're not gonna always be on good terms.
And that also felt really real to me. Like, yeah, because I feel like we've all been there with our friends, where it's like, I love you, but also you, like, really hurt my feelings, and I'm furious with you in this moment.
Right.
Like,
we all handle it differently, and we all have different ways of coping. But for the most part, if we're angry or really hurt, we will let the other person know, even if we never express it verbally. They will figure it out somehow.
Yeah. And I thought it was also kind of like, yeah, like, speaking of the actual central romance in Takashi, who I also love, incidentally. Like,
yes, he's my child. I told Andrea that he's my child. I'm like, that's my child. Obviously, I didn't actually get birth to him.
He's so good. Like, even in the first book, where it's like, it's kind of trying to fake you out and be like, oh yes, he might be evil. I'm like, I don't believe he's evil. I think he's a good boy.
It's like my previous editor, for BLAZEWRATH Games, they kept saying to me, sure, Takeshi, whatever you say, Takeshi, I don't care.
Yeah, but like, you're going through your, like, I'm pretending to be the villain phase. Like, that's adorable.
Yes, and also I just really love revenge stories in general. And I think it's because I would never go to those extremes. I would never do what Takeshi did, but I think that he actually came to me. It was always, I can spoil this here, I always wanted Lana to have a different love interest. But for some reason, as I was brainstorming this book, I kept imagining this boy who was never planned. He kept popping into the scenes, and he was very angry. And he was in the Sire's army.
Yeah.
But Lana knew who he was. Like, she felt like, oh my God, this is whoever. Because I didn't have his name then. I just knew that he was angry and he was hiding something. And he was popular, like, he was known. And then I figured it out. I'm like, oh, he's a superstar.
Solid, like, mysterious YA love interest.
Oh, I love
that. You're hitting all the beats for that. But yeah, I mean, it was also kind of fun seeing him through Victoria's perspective in the second book too, because it's like, I feel like often with those, like, larger than life, like, incredibly charming, beautiful male love interests, especially in YA, it's very easy to, like, fall into this trap of, like, because you're seeing him through the heroine's perspective, so of course he thinks he's, like, amazing and flawless and super hot.
He's perfect.
But, like, and you're like, oh, this is just, like, a perfect Adonis of a person. So it's kind of fun seeing him through, like, another woman's perspective and having her kind of be like, okay, like, I can see why everybody loves him, and, like, and Victoria also admires him and, like, has a certain degree of respect for him. But it's interesting to, like, I don't know, I found their dynamic really interesting because Victoria isn't interested in him in that way, and so she sees him through a very different lens, and I like having that contrast to Lana's, like, oh no, I'm like, oh, he's so beautiful and I'm falling for him.
I can't remember which friend it was, but someone was like, is Lana gonna finally touch, Takeshi's butt or something? Because she was always like admiring him. I'm like, that is a very specific question that you just asked.
Right.
And maybe, who knows?
I'm sure that multiple readers were kind of wondering in the back of their mind, like, huh.
Yes, exactly. But I like that, Victoria, as you said perfectly, she is not attracted to him at all. Mm-hmm. But she respects him because he is a very good player in the sport that she also wishes to excel in.
Right, yeah, because that's the thing. She also is kind of a celebrity in her own right within this world. So she isn't like starstruck the same way somebody else is going to be. She's like, oh, we're colleagues, basically.
Yes.
I can kind of see you with those rose-colored glasses off.
Yes, and I love that she refers to them, almost all of them, by their surnames. Like, she doesn't necessarily use their first names, because it's like a sign of respect for her, because she's like, yes, you are also like, it's a Messi or like a Ronaldo type of situation where
that's
you
also
know
like
them by last name.
Her.
You know them by last name. You don't have to like address them by their first names, and it's like, it's a given that we all know what Endo means or who Endo is. And it's just like, do we?
And it's like, I love that I really love the kind of the light that you shed on the process of getting Lana to her kind of romantic part. Because I was wondering, at least like in the first book, because like the second book is a little more romance heavy, but in the first book I was like, I feel like Takeshi might be the love interest, but like, is it Andrew? Maybe like there's
yes.
But I also did like that they did ultimately end up just having this like really sweet friendship. Basically, spoilers again, but like, which I found extremely upsetting, but also saw why it was necessary for the plot. Not make it less upsetting when I was sitting there in the airport.
I mean, I'm happy that I upset people, but at the same time, it's like, I understand why you're upset. I don't know if I've said this like here. I don't think so. But Andrew was actually in my first draft ever. He and Victoria were a couple, which makes no sense. Like at all.
All right, fanfic writers, get your pens ready. That's like, not a ship I would have expected, but I'm kind of here
absolutely
for it.
not.
I did that in my head.
Yes, it was exactly as you imagined. Like, he was very charming and like a friendly person, a warmer face, a warmer presence, and Victoria was Victoria. So it was. I was like, as I was reading it again to start editing, I was like, what is happening in this draft? They make no sense together.
But I do love like a soft boy and like kind of an iron lady.
Yes, I love that too. I feel like Victoria would be, if she ever is interested in like exploring relationships, I think that's who she would go for. Absolutely.
Somebody
like a cinnamon roll type. Yeah. And she would be mad about it.
I absolutely see her being that kind of like fiery tsundere character who's just like, I don't care about this person. Like, why are my feelings doing this?
I don't have emotions. Who is this person? Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like with Lana, she's more similar to me, because when we get crushes, we are very like, oh my God, it's happening, type of situation. But Victoria, it feels like it would be more challenging and more fun to explore how she would be in that regard.
Right, yeah. I was like, she makes me think of this one bit in like, I think one of the John Mulaney stand-up sets.
I have not seen any of them, but I know some people in the audience, they love John. Yes.
Yeah, there was like a bit where like where he's talking about like his very like stoic father, and he's like, yes, I'm just gonna hold all of my feelings right here, and one day I'll die. I feel like that might be Victoria's energy.
That is exactly her. Holy Christ! Yes,
hold all my
absolutely.
Feelings right here. One day I'll die.
Like, I bottle them up and then I never use them. Wow.
Right.
That's amazing. Wow. Poor Victoria.
So like, speaking of, I guess, like the kind of transition from like the first book to the second book, I was like, because like the first book almost could have worked as a standalone, but like you rarely have, again, like going back to sports story tropes, you rarely have like a sports novel in which by the end of the novel, that sport literally no longer exists. Yeah. So I was like, I knew there's a second book, so I was like, oh gosh, what is Amparo gonna do? How is she gonna write her way out of this one? Like how do you have another sports novel without the sport anymore? And then you like rallied magnificently in the second book. I was, if anything, like even more engrossed in that one, just because like it was kind of dealing with the aftermath of the collapse of BLAZEWRATH, but you still had like kind of like unsanctioned athletic events springing up, and like this whole new kind of political world order that has to deal with that, and like that is very much my jam as well. So I was like,
our brands,
I never should have brought it on Amparo. She's so smart. Like this is really good. I love this.
I feel like when I was thinking about the first book, like still brainstorming everything that meant BLAZEWRATH, I kept understanding, or I kept envisioning, I should say, that, you know, it is the only legal sport revolving around dragons, but why would there not be an illegal sport revolving around dragons? Like, we literally live in the world that they live in, the world that we live in. So we have a lot of ethical concerns when it comes to managing animals and
managing animals,
public
also
consumption.
Unsanctioned combat sports, like
absolutely, and black market trade, and it's just like all of these things like contribute to understanding that some people just want to profit and they don't care who they hurt. And I was like, okay, but who could do this with dragons? Like, how can you actually force dragons, the mightiest creature alive, to participate in something that will end up in their death? How do I do that? And I immediately thought, well, it's a magic user. But it has to be the most powerful type, which is Gold One, which is the highest magical tier. And then I was like, okay, but what kind of person, regardless of their magical ability, what kind of human being would like doing this? And then I was like, Cecilia. And so we move on. In BLAZEWRATH games, we have an actual dragon as the villain. He's cursed into human form, but he's still, in his mind, he's a dragon. And then in this one, it's a human being, but with magic. So it's like, in neither one, you get a straight up force that is the villain in human regular form. You do get, you know, I know a lot of people have commented about how much they dislike Todd.
I feel like Todd is definitely the real villain of both books. Like, if you meant to create a character, you definitely succeeded.
Oh my god, that is all I ever wanted to hear.
It's
awesome because like
I just saw Laura type Todd in like angry all caps.
Todd is just he's beloved by no one. He's that kind of person.
Like the anti Takeshi, and that like nobody likes him. In the same way that you can't help but love. You can't help but love Takeshi.
Yeah,
you can't help but hate Todd.
He's truly there are layers to Todd. I don't want to like admit that, but because my editors were like,
the job of like kind of like I think explaining why he is the way that he is, but it doesn't like make him more likable. And I admire that.
Absolutely not. And he actually had a little bit of a tragic backstory in the first couple of drafts. And my editor was like, I don't want him to have a tragic backstory. I
just want to hate him in peace. Let me
I was like, there is no need for him to have like, he is a bad person, Amparo. Keep him this way. Like, you know what? Fine. But yeah, he's not
all the comments that are popping up in the chat right now about how much everybody hates Todd, which is validating my point.
Yeah, he truly is. And originally, he was meant to be like the biggest bad of them all. Like you have Sire and you have Cecilia, and then you of course have Randall, but like at the same time, I really wanted a regular, like a normal human being, to also be in the mix. And then I realized, well, I mean, he doesn't have to be the actual big bad in terms of facing Lana. Knowing that he exists and he will always be harassing her is evil enough.
And I like that you made that choice, because I feel like that is, again, like really true to life. Like often, like the people
unfortunately.
Who, like the people who like get under your skin and hurt you are not necessarily like, I don't know, like the Hitlers of the world. Sometimes it's just like, like some shitty rich white boy who's like super entitled and like wants to be a troll on the internet. Like
yes, exactly. Who thinks he's like a socialite or like an influencer, and he's like gonna be president one day, and who knows if he is, you know? It's just wow, privilege. Privilege does so much. Yeah, it's like I wish I felt that, a little bit of that privilege, to be like, I am invincible like you, Todd. But yeah,
right, yeah. To have the confidence of a Todd, but with like none of the terrible personality.
Oh my gosh, I would love that life. I would love that life.
Like the next time I'm like anxious about something, I'd be like, okay, just like manifest Todd's confidence, but like none of his bad traits.
Yes, he is a special person, and people have asked me like, do you see him as someone specifically? Like, if you could cast Todd in a movie or a TV show, like, who would play him? And I'm like, that's a dangerous question, because like you're essentially telling the world, oh, this person is terrible enough to play this character.
Punch. Yeah.
Yes. It's like, you know what? Let's just leave it up to people's imagination.
Right. Truly. Okay. Well, I should be a responsible moderator and start, like, instead of monopolizing all your time, allow other people to ask their questions. So we've got 6 questions so far.
Yay! Oh, thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah. So the first one is from Lori Lee.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, Lori.
Yes. Everyone, buy Lori's books.
Yes, please do. Lori is asking, what was your favorite childhood book? What was your favorite book in childhood?
Childhood book? I actually didn't start reading until I was 14. Okay, that sounds like I didn't know how to read. I knew how to read, but like I didn't read for pleasure until I was 14, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I'm just gonna cheat and say, like, pretend that when I was 14 I was a child, and at the time I really loved Holly Black's Tithe. I think that's how you pronounce it.
I read it, I think, as a teenager as well.
It was an experience for a lot of reasons, but mostly because it was the first time that I saw the F-bomb in a children's book, and it marked me for life. Yeah. I was like, you can do that?
Right. Yeah.
Cool. I love this book, but also I blame it for like my general love of fantasy in literature. I feel like I've always been
blame it for my general love of swearing, and I was like, that's completely valid.
That was long before 14. That was long before I turned 14.
No, this is just making me, it's making me think of like my launch for Rebel Wing. I remember like one of my friends was like very kindly attempting to like sell my book to like a very sweet like elementary school teacher who was like, oh, it's a kid's book, like maybe I'll buy it for my classroom. And I like ran up to them. I was like, there are so many swear words in this book. Like, I'm so sorry.
Don't do this to them. Yes, but but the thing is though, people tend to confuse how to use F words or swear words in general, like in a way that reflects character. Because I feel like if you're just doing it to have a swear word in a book or on a page, it's not insane. It doesn't really
feel organic. Yeah,
it has to reflect character somehow. And I think you did a great job with it, and Holly Black changed my life with it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I do have an unfortunate tendency to write POV characters who are just natural potty mouth personalities.
I mean, that's who I am as a real person. So maybe one day I will get to like actually self-insert all of me into someone.
Right. Perfect. I am very excited for that day. I think you would be a good protagonist.
I would feel so free that day. I'm like, I finally made it.
Yes. Okay, so next question is from Laura again. Hey, Laura.
Hi, Laura.
You for joining us. Thank you for hyping us up.
Yes.
Favorite movie with a dragon in it? Good question.
Oh my gosh. So Yes. So I have a cheating answer, and it's a TV show. It's BBC's Merlin. They have Kilgara.
Yes. The John Hurt dragon, right?
The John Hurt dragon. Rest in peace, John Hurt. Amazing actor, amazing voice actor specifically for this role. That dragon literally does nothing useful. Like, it literally lands to tell Merlin, this is what you must believe. You must believe in yourself. The magic that you are practicing will one day be useful. Trust in your path. Goodbye. And I'm like, I love him. He's so chaotic. But I also like Falkor from The Neverending Story, even though sometimes I'm like, is he a dragon?
Right.
But he is. In my heart, he's a dragon. So
yeah, I feel like he counts. He's dragon adjacent enough.
He's dragon adjacent, which is what we respect here as well.
Right. I like to believe that the John Hurt dragon is how like most of us would be if we were dragons.
Absolutely.
Like we would do nothing useful with our
Absolutely.
powers. Like let's just like kind of like troll humans for our own
absolutely
and like just like watch them like go live their little human lives on the platform.
Yes. And I also I really respect a dragon who can communicate with humans and chooses to not really say anything at all. Like that's just fascinating to me.
Right.
The wisdom is not clicking for me. It's not clicking.
Yeah. No, I think like one of my I'm like outing myself here. I had a friend who wrote like BBC Merlin fanfic back in the day.
Oh my god, they're my favorite person now.
She did she wrote like I think she specifically wrote like college AU, and she cast the John Hurt dragon as like a lit professor who always like speaks in riddles and has like
that's exactly who he would be.
Like has a really confusing grading rubric that like stresses everybody out. Like no one understands how they're supposed to pass the class.
No one literally learns a thing. And they have fun while not learning.
You just
I love
get
it.
Really plastered while writing your term paper and hope you get an A.
That reminds me of law school.
Right. Oh God, such a mood. Okay. Well, next question. What have been some of the most valuable lessons you've learned while writing about Latinx characters in contemporary and fantasy settings? Thank you, Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore hosts.
Yes, thank you. So I've learned that we are not a monolith, and this applies to every single community. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I feel like in fantasy, whether it's in films, television, or in literature, I feel like there is a lack of representation that feels respectful enough to consider people who are not white or able-bodied or male, cis males, to be actually heroes. So I felt
non-Todds of the world, so to speak.
Right. It's all Todd and no Lana. And it's just, not all Todd, but growing up, and this is TMI a little bit, but growing up, I thought that I didn't like boys because I wanted to be Harrison Ford and I wanted to be Tom Cruise.
Right.
Just because they went on adventures and they got to save the world or save a city.
Like fun stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I want to be a boy. I thought that I wanted to be a boy. And I'm like, no, I just want to be a hero, you know?
Right.
Like, I want to go on adventures and, like, run around. And coincidentally, I was the only girl in, like, 3rd, 4th grade who would arrive to homeroom with, like, her hair completely messed up and super sweaty. Because I was running around with all the guys, all the boys. And I was like, something is not clicking. Why are the girls? I want to play with the girls. Like, why are the girls not playing with me? They're like, no, I have a bow on my head. And I'm like, well, you just take it off.
Right.
But it's because of societal pressure to look a certain way, act a certain way. So I feel like writing Latinx fantasy or fantasy with Latinx main characters has helped me understand even more that importance, because readers who are Puerto Rican or readers who are Latinx in general, they will see parts of themselves reflected on the page, and it's important for them to do so, because how else are they going to continue believing in good things?
Right.
Or having hope that the world can finally make sense for them or click for them in some way. So
right. No, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a tremendous answer. And like the next question does kind of tie into that a little. Also from our lovely hosts at Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore. Have you been able to utilize your degree in psychology in your writing? And I feel like your last answer kind of delved into that a little bit.
It has, because for example, with Dragon Blood Ring, I had to explore trauma and how PTSD manifests itself. And I only have a bachelor's degree, which people be like, Amparo, that's 4 years. But I'm like, yes, but I have actual psychologist friends who have their PhDs and are certified. I just have 4 years under my belt, not like close to 10, and a certificate, but or a license, I should say. But in the case of Dragon Blood Ring specifically, I had to explore how loss affects both Lana and Victoria, and how memories that aren't as pleasant to remember can affect your present day actions. And I felt like it's just fascinating to me to know, or to get to explore how people in general experience grief, because I feel like I experience grief a very not normal, like a common way, which is like I cry every once in a while and I move on with my life essentially, but we're not all the same. And this whole concept of, well, this is the right way to grieve, or this is the right way to be, it's just incorrect. And I feel like we should allow people to feel what they feel, take their time in feeling everything, and not force them to fit into boxes. And I feel like studying psychology for as little time that I did, it was helpful because it satiated that like interest or need to understand how humans think and behave more.
Right. Yeah. No. And I think that comes across really well on the page too, especially in the second book, which deals with so many sensitive issues around trauma and PTSD and grief. And like, I don't know, I felt like I was really impressed with how sensitively and intricately that was all handled.
Oh my gosh, that means so much to me.
And I really loved that. And like, I also loved that you had like 3 characters on the page, like Lana, Victoria, and like Takashi, who have all like, they've all experienced like horrendously traumatizing events, and they all deal with them very differently, like you were saying.
Very different.
Yeah, and I love that you didn't frame any one of their coping mechanisms as being like the correct way to like grieve or like the correct way to process trauma. They just all kind of had to come to their grief and their trauma in their own time and reckon with that.
Yeah, so, that's exactly what I set out to do. And it's an interesting thing because I was very afraid as I was drafting Dragon Blood Ring. I was like, no one is going to enjoy reading this book because it is not a fun book. And it's especially compared to BLAZEWRATH Games, which is more fun. It's funnier, I guess. It's more action.
Yeah, you're like getting to know the world. It's like it's like a fun pilot episode to like.
Exactly. It's just like, hey, dude. But then Dragon Blood Ring hits, and you're like, oh no, everyone's sad.
I mean, maybe this is TMI on my end, but like I found it really cathartic actually, because like I have dealt with things like grief and PTSD and so forth, and I was like, yeah, I know this ring's really, really true.
Oh my gosh, that means a lot.
Yeah. So
and thank you for sharing that. Because that was one of my things, you know. As authors, we try to be as careful with our representation as possible. Well, not all of us, but we try.
We try. Knock on wood. We don't always succeed, but we're always. I like to think
the cool ones try.
We try our best. Like we are always human, but like we do try our best.
We make mistakes. We mess up sometimes, but at the end of the day, we really want the characters to ring true. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of opportunism when it comes to grief explored on the page, because people will be like, oh, they will redefine what grief is just to fit a plot. And that's not what I wanted to do at all. I wanted her like Lana's grief, her trauma to inform the plot, not the other way around.
Yeah. So, yeah, and all 3 of them, again, not to keep on harping on that, like all of their kind of like trauma
I do not mind.
Do inform the plot in like really significant ways and kind of shape it in this very character-driven sense.
Oh my gosh. Yep. I can die happy now.
Okay, so moving on to like on that note, moving on to like a slightly lighter question. Thank you, Laura, again. This one's fun. What real world sport do you think would benefit the most from adding dragons, and why?
Oh my god, can I say all of them? But like literally imagine this is I'm gonna sound really sarcastic, but I'm being honest. Imagine polo with dragons.
Oh my god.
Or jousting with dragons.
I mean, it's kind of a natural fit. Like we already
imagine
have polo across multiple. Like we have it on land and in water. And all it's missing is polo in the air. So
yes, or like cricket with dragons. Like these highbrow, super elite sports with dragons. Because I feel like if you play basketball with dragons, that wouldn't work. Like you have to dribble the ball.
Yeah, I'd also like worry a lot about the contact between like fire and rubber.
Absolutely. Like that's physics experts everywhere would be like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But I feel like anything that has like no sense of the ball making any sort of connection to the floor, that's a good sport for dragons to be involved.
Yes.
Although football with dragons isn't that far from soccer, I guess. American football from what is considered football in Europe. I feel like they're better protected than soccer players because soccer players don't really have helmets and such, or like shoulder pads. But it would be interesting to see like a dragon tackle another dragon and like steal the ball with their mouth or something.
Right. Do they still like, are the football players like riding the dragons at this point and like urging the dragons to tackle each other with humans like in the mix?
What if the human player is throwing the ball at the dragon and the dragon is the one like the quarterback is the dragon, the linebacker, all of these positions are like the dragons, and the humans are just the ones like at the end like trying to stop the dragon from scoring. It's like, wait, no, I'm confusing it because American football doesn't have goalies. That tells you a lot.
I mean, we can do soccer with
we can create our own sport.
We can just create another we can create like BLAZEWRATH versions 2.0.
I just pictured like who's like the most famous player in the NFL. I feel like it's Tom Brady, but I don't
Probably
like Tom Brady.
Yeah, I don't follow the NFL as terribly closely compared to other sports, so I feel like my knowledge is extremely basic on that front. But
I feel like before him it was Landon Donovan, and then wait, no, Landon Donovan is a soccer player. Oh my gosh, I'm out.
I feel like what we're really learning from your answer to this question is that your answer is definitely like you're like
still soccer,
right? Like European soccer over American soccer for
still soccer
usage.
Yes, it's like imagine a world with no American football. That'd be sad, actually.
Only what football is to the rest of the world, which is soccer.
Right, exactly.
I do remember like
sorry.
I hope I'm not gonna like make American football fans in our audience angry by saying this, but I do remember I was having dinner with my dad once, and he was like, I think we were talking about the World Cup, and he was like asking if I was watching it. I was like, yeah, I'll like tune in more than I will typically for like American football. And he was like, oh, why is that? And I was like, well, frankly, I think that the soccer players are better looking than American football players.
100%.
And I just think they're hotter, Dad. And my dad like thought about this for a minute. He was like, you know what? I actually agree with you. I think you're
very good. That is an astute person. Absolutely. It takes a true human, a true adult to admit that soccer players are just better looking.
They're just
like,
they're just in general. They just have very sexy energy.
I feel like it's also their build because they don't have to bulk up as much and they're not supposed to be too thin as well. It's just like it's like a happy medium. So I don't know, I guess because they're supposed to run really fast, so they're supposed to be lighter.
Also, it's such an international sport, so a lot lot of them are multilingual, which I personally find really attractive.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. And some of the most popular, most known players are not from the U.S. anyway. So
and so they get used to like interviewing in different languages. I remember like one of my favorite volleyball players is on like the Japanese national team, and he plays in an Italian league right now. So he gives interviews in both in like Japanese and Italian, and I'm just
very
like
fluently.
This is very attractive of you.
You're like, yeah. I get really excited when I understand Italian because, of course, it's a Romance language like Spanish, which is my first language. But at the same time, I'm like, wow, that was because some words don't mean the same thing in either language or in both languages, even though they are the same. They're spelled the same way and pronounced the same way. It's like those differences. I'm like, I still know what you said.
Right. Yeah. No, that is the beauty of Romance languages in general. This is okay. So the next question is actually something that you and I have discussed, I think, in Twitter. And it's would Lana and Prue get along? Good question.
Absolutely. I mean,
I feel like that's
would they
not? They absolutely would. I do kind of agree with you that like Victoria and Prue might naturally gravitate towards each other a little more. But I feel like Annabelle would also want to hop on the Victoria train.
But I feel like Lana would want to be considered cool by someone like Prue because Prue is essentially a rule breaker when we meet her, and the fact that she can imprint or she has this bond with Rebel Wing makes her completely different from what Lana is used to, and she loves dragons. She's like, dragons are the coolest creatures alive, but imagine a mecha dragon. Like imagine imprinting with or imprinting on this specific species or this specific model, it would be mind-blowing for her, and she would feel like the most incredible human if Prue was like, yeah, you're cool.
Which is so funny because Prue spends most of Rebel Wing just being like, I don't want this.
Yes.
Like this is really
love
stressful.
Yes.
Like,
and she's not
really
wrong.
I'm convinced that like it's like a mistake. I'm really bad at this. I don't even like drive. Like, how am I supposed to handle a giant robot dragon? I want to just give it to Alex and make him deal with it instead. Like,
yes. But I feel like the fact that Lana would want Prue to accept her fate and be like, listen, you had no control over how everything developed, but it happened for a reason, and you're the person that Rebel Wing has chosen, essentially. So stop being a little punk and do what you are supposed to do. And I think Victoria would actually motivate her and be like, listen, the connection between Ryder and Steed is not something to be afraid of. You need to embrace this.
That would be really sweet, actually.
Yeah, it's like these are the benefits of having. It's basically a best friend.
Side of Victoria too.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Victoria's not known now. Yes, she's not known for being soft, but in this case, she would be because she's like, oh my god, you're wasting your potential.
You're 100% right.
You are wasting your potential, Prue.
And I was also thinking, like, I feel like Alex would really love Lana.
Yes.
Like, first of all, he'd be like, oh, another Spanish speaker, and there would be like that instant, like, cultural connection. But he would also like, but I feel like he does like kind of like scrappy go-getter girls. You also see him a little bit older in Renegade Flight, and you see him kind of taking like those kinds of personalities under wing and just being like, oh, you're such a spitfire, I love you.
And he's very charming in the way that I think Lana would be like, I want to protect you, like I want you to be safe, and you can protect yourself, but I want you to be safe at all times. It's like, and I think the one who would be the glue of every single person, like every character in both of these worlds, would be actually Samira, because she's like, there's a benefit to doing this. There's a benefit to doing that. You're super talented. You're super hot. You're this. Like, she would find like the good qualities of everyone. Like, she would be their glue.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, because I think the entire Rebel Wing cast, at least on the protagonist side, would love Samira. Like,
I feel
it would just be like, she's so good at, like, she's just like, it would just be like competence cake at work. Like, she's so good at everything.
Yes.
Like,
and I feel like she would have a lot to think and say about the Lamarcks. I feel like she would be like, this is interesting. Let me write you an essay. And she would just be like, where do I begin?
Yeah. Just like, okay, political
Let's do a map.
Like, all right, let's talk about why these can sometimes get a little dysfunctional, to say the least.
She would try to figure all of their problems out for them and then try to make them understand that her way is the only way.
Right. I feel like that would essentially get rid of the need for future books in that universe, because she would leave all potential conflict in the bud.
Absolutely. She's like,
between her and Annabelle would just be like, done, taken care of.
Yes, exactly. Because in the first book, she's, Todd has a crush on her, and it's not a real like crush. He's just interested in her because of who she is. Right. And I feel like she knows. Crush. Yeah, she knows this, and she's still like, you know what? Let's just be nice to the guy. You never know.
Let's just work with it. Like, I can maneuver through this politically.
I'm fine.
Right.
This isn't harassment at all,
Oh gosh.
So she would try to be like seeing the good in every single character, even though there's nothing good about a lot of people in either world.
For all of these worlds.
Yes.
I like this question too. This is from Natalie. If Lana and Victoria could be part of other fantasy worlds, which ones would it be?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I would like to challenge them and have them be in more of like a sci-fi world, actually. But if it's
I could see Victoria thriving in like a cyberpunk setting, actually.
Yes. I mean, Battle Dragons by Alex London.
Would, have no problems.
Yes. There's a book called Battle Dragons by Alex London. It came out, I believe, last month or September. And it's very cyberpunkish. It's mecha dragons as well.
Excellent. But
dragons are literally an integral part of society where they're kind of like working as transportation devices. they're just like managing this entire city, or they're not managing it, but they run this city as mostly part of daily life. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really cool take on it.
Because at the same time, there's like gang wars, and it's just like this specific type of dragon will never belong to this specific gang because they value, for example, information, knowledge. They
that's really cool.
Smuggle, like history books and such, and it's just interesting to see. So I feel like I would like to put them in battle dragons.
We need to host like an Alex London book club then, and like
yes,
because like I feel like both of us, the way we approach dragons is more the kind of typical like SFF way of doing it, where dragons are kind of like inherently fantastical and like wondrous in the universe in the same way that they would be to us in real life, probably.
That's true.
So like the idea of dragons as part of the mundane in someone's world building. Like both dragons and mechs, let alone dragon mechs as mundane, is kind of cool to think about, actually.
Yes. It's like they learn about different dragon species in school and how to care for them. It's really interesting. But then at the same time, the dragons are part of gangs. I'm like, I want to be part of a gang.
Okay. This is definitely going on my TBR. I'm very excited to read this now.
Yes. It's similar to Dragon Blood Ring in the sense that there are fights.
Yeah.
But it's a completely different type of fight because the dragons are aware that they're doing something and they're doing it willingly for the most part, in the sense that they agree to this. But at the same time, whenever animals or any sort of magical creature is involved in these specific scenarios where they're battling others, ethical questions are coming up. They pop up a lot. So I feel like that's my favorite part about fantasy that deals with managing or trying to include animals or magical creatures into what we consider our forms of entertainment or our daily life. It's like, do they want this? Is this right? Just because we can do this, should we do this? So I feel like Alex does a fantastic job at actually pulling that off.
All right. Well, thank you for like bringing that to my attention. I'm like very excited.
I think you would absolutely
I think I would love this.
Totally. And I think you should co-write a book with Alex at some point. I mean, or I petition to like edit an anthology that's all dragons.
This is all dragons.
But for young adults, because there's like the Book of Dragons, the adult fantasy anthology. But yeah.
Oh yeah, I think I heard about that one.
I haven't read it yet.
I haven't either. Clearly, the TBR continues to grow.
Yes.
To quote Laura in the comments. Okay, one last question. Which of the dragons in BLAZEWRATH is your favorite? Oh, that's like choosing between children.
That is very difficult to answer. But I feel like my favorite, this is going to be really emo of me, but I feel like my favorite is Hikaru, even though we don't see Hikaru in either book necessarily. We learn about him. We know that he used to be a very important part of the BLAZEWRATH World Cup in terms of his team has won the cup and his team is world-renowned superstars, right? But he was brutally murdered in the first book, and now his writer is out there rumored to be hunting down his killer. And people would be like, oh, why is that your favorite dragon? Like, you don't actually see him on the page that much. But I see him in my heart.
Right. I mean, I definitely have a bit of a weakness for the like dead before the story even starts character who nonetheless somehow manages to like influence events from beyond the grave because of what an emotional impact they had on the like living characters. So like I also love Hikaru.
Yes, I mean
also,
I feel like
I'm a sucker for like Takeshi and like his suffering and his growth from that. So I'm just like, oh,
I love how you suffer.
Right. I'm like I love and I hate it. Like it makes me sad, but it also is just like it's done so well.
It gets to a point where it's like, no, stop making me care.
Right. Yeah.
We at the bookstore call that the good sad.
I love that.
That is the perfect way to put it. Actually.
I'm gonna steal that. Copyright is mine.
So thank you guys so much for that event. I feel like
oh my gosh!
No, thank you for having us. Also, thank you for letting us ramble on and on. I was like looking at the time, and I was like, oh, but I want to keep going. thinking. But
I did not even look at the time until it was an hour past. So that means that we had fun. I'm not sure.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this was such a blast, everyone.
I feel like I could have slided with you for like 3 more hours.
Oh my gosh, we need to do more things together. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that I have to be the bad guy that ends.
Oh no, you were playing an integral role in like rescuing us from ourselves here. But thank you so much for hosting us. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for joining, and thank you to our audience for also joining and following along with us this evening. If you guys haven't already, just one last reminder to go ahead and purchase Amparo's newest book. You can do that by clicking the green button that says buy books with signed personalized book plates. And then any of the books talked about in the event tonight too, you can find in the chat. Nick, our lovely bookseller assistant, has been linking those all evening. So little round
shout out to Nick.
Yes.
MVP.
And with that, I'm going to end it tonight here. Thank you guys so much for joining and have a good one. We'll see you next time virtually.
Thank
you so much, everyone. Please rest.